Miss me with that. Miss me with something. All right, Mariam? So we saw what happened on Sunday when the president went to Roysambu and he attended a church service and he made an open declaration of his personal contribution and donation of 20 million shillings. And then he said, Mukianza kujenga hii kanisa, just call me back. I'm going to organize myself and my close friends and we'll come back with 100 million shillings. That's a pledge of 120 upfront. Okay? 120 million shillings contribution. On the Daily Nation today, the editorial of the Daily Nation has something that they say, President's move is ironical. Where they say that when the President Ruto banned public officials from participating in fundraisers, the message sent out to all was a determination to stop the abuse of this otherwise noble initiative. Through the Harambee movement since independence, individuals, families, communities, friends, self-help groups and organizations have been able to pool resources for development. Then come last year when the president banned this, he said, state and public officers are not going to do this. And we'll play the clip a bit later.
Right.
The Nation editorial says it's quite ironical that he is violating his own ban that was meant to put an end to the mess. He has just donated 20 million shillings to a Nairobi church, vowing to ignore his critics and give even more. Quite intriguing is his pledge to raise 100 million shillings more, revealing his close association with the pastor. He also offered 20 acres of land to that same church. The president's generosity has rightly raised eyebrows in various quarters because it negates a stand that he publicly took on this matter. On the same page, page 17 of the Daily Nation, Masharia Gaido, who is a seasoned journalist, has written, Ruto's generosity rolls back Gen Z gains. And it takes back into, on this day, in July last year, on the 5th of July to be specific, President William Ruto, in his now what had become evening and nightly addresses to the nation, where he was addressing what was happening now, the country, kimeumana, and I'm coming back and I'm listening and I'm showing that I'm listening. He came out and said, one of the things that I've heard is about the direct show of opulence by the people of Kenya, by not the people of Kenya, by those in leadership, especially those surrounding me. And people have been pushing back and saying, how is it possible that somebody can just go and just be donating 20 million shillings here and there? In fact, that time, the biggest figure was the 20 million shillings donated by an MP. And people are asking, how is it possible that this person is now donating 20 million shillings? Next week, they'll be donating another huge amount of money. And the president came out to indicate to the country, fellow Kenyans, I have heard you. And because of that, this is a directive that I'm making. That state going forward, no state or public officer shall do harambees, shall do personal donations or participate in harambees. I am directing the Attorney General to come up with a policy framework that guides us on how we go forward with this. The Attorney General is in office. We haven't seen publicly any public framework. The president is still in office, and he's leading from the front in giving these donations. When the church, particularly the Catholic Church and the Anglicans, pushed back towards the end of last year, just a couple of months after the president made his own declaration, and then he started making donations, the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church pushed back. And there was a big pushback on this. And then the political class coalesced around the president and they started pushing back. And they went to the evangelical churches. And those ones said, yes, you let a pesa. Pesa iko. Ni pesa too. Pesa kuna shida. And that's why even our cartoon today is just showing that. It is showing, this looks like Archbishop Ole Sapit, right? Holding his staff. And then you can see the other preacher there holding the Bible and he's telling Ruto on a wheelbarrow, keep coming. Keep coming. The
wheelbarrow is comedic genius, by the way.
Completely, right? Yes. And it has bebered what? The cash. Masharia Gaida says, we cannot afford to turn back the clock just because the government was provided some reprieve by incorporation of opposition chief Raila Odinga's troops into the feeding trough. President Ruto must be reminded that he is not above the law. So this is to President William Ruto. Because of the agitation by the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, you may call them our children, but they are citizens of the Republic of Kenya. You stood and addressed the public and said, this is not going to continue, because the main concern here is the open show of opulence, which raises questions about the sources of this kind of wealth. And you said, we are going to have a more structured approach to this. Then you got into a deal with your fellow politicians, and now you felt that your government is a bit safe. And now you can now push back on the political pressure that's upon you. And to put finger in these people's noses, you started going back to donating the same amount of money. And the churches pushed back. But then there's these other churches that accepted. Now you think that because, well, you have Raila on your side, you have a majority in the parliament, you have your political house seeming to be in order, you think that we can forget that you made a promise that this is going to stop? Do you think, Mr. President, that because now you seem to be politically coasting, that the pain that was there in the public, that when the people are telling you, please end this, please, this is not a good show of faith, please stop it, that because now you're comfortable, you can come back and start doing the thing that I've just said, inserting fingers on the citizens' noses? No, Mr. President, miss me with that.
Pewe soda baridi kwa bili yangu. Thank you.
Ikuje ikiwa baridi kabisa.
Ikiwa baridi kabisa.
Kabisa. Kabisa.
Let me start with the fact that it's in glaring public view. Everybody was there. Everybody heard the president saying, public officials and harambees, never. We're not doing that again.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not under my watch.
We're done with that. But public official number one, numero uno, the head of the executive, the buck stops with you, donates 20 million shillings cash. What does that say about, leave alone any other thing, governance, just about the president himself? It's a step back. It's going back on your word. It's a lie. And I think we've had to call out the president's lies time and time again. That's exactly what it is. It's not a miscommunication. It's a lie. Why would you say that public officials should not be allowed to give to harambees and then go around and do the exact same thing? That's one. Two, now that we are in this quagmire of people living, politicians actually, living lavishly, showing off their wealth, being very, very keen to let us know that they make more than us, whether it's the red bottoms at the Mehdi Hassan interview or every other show of opulence, that brand new car that keeps being bought, you know, and you're like, hey, a 50 million shilling car every quarter? What is happening? We're in that quagmire. What message are you sending by then giving 20 million shillings, pledging another 100 million shillings to a church? Question three, why the church? Why is the church always willing to accept donations? Of course, like you said, there's situations where they have rejected donations. But why is the church always willing, or almost always willing, to accept donations, and ridiculously huge donations at that? What's happening there? Churches are able to cater for their finances. Let's not get that twisted. People tithe, people give offering on a day, on Sunday, and even sometimes more, right? Churches are able to crowdfund and build whatever structures they need to pay whatever stuff they need to without the donations of politicians. Would it help to get a 20 million shilling donation? Of course, everyone could use an extra 20M, but why are politicians always running to the church? I want to see some clips, Phil, from Miguna and a couple of other people who've spoken on this issue, and we'll just dissect their thoughts before we get into anything. Reject this madness. 20 million at the expense of suffering Kenyans. You claim to lead, reject. Yeah, he was reacting to that.
That's Frank Kianda who said that. Captain Kip Korir says, by the way, Uhuru Kenyatta, taxpayers' money, used taxpayers' money as donations and you kept silent. President Ruto gave out 20 million shillings personal donation, and some of you are shouting already. So this one is saying, look, here is looking at a news article from the past. Uhuru pledges 100 million shillings government donation in church. All right? And this one is about whataboutism, saying, look, Uhuru gave 100 million shillings in church. It was taxpayers' money. Ruto has given money. He has not said it's taxpayers' money. Only 20 million and you're making noise only 20 million. When did you make noise when Uhuru did it?
About the 100 million.
Yeah, what aboutism? It's what about the other guy?
We can't what about ourselves to death, right? This is how schools look like in the Rift Valley. No shoes, of course, no books, and of course no desks. And then Kituetu, wait, after that I can't read. Okay, Mtuetu, yes, of course. He lies that he's a sufferer, gives 20 million to an already established church located on public land. Haya, if the 20 million cash that he gave to a church is not a proceed of crime, Ruto should let Ruto disclose his private bank withdrawals receipts or RTGS. Kenya is dealing with an irredeemable, material, occultist, incorrigible megalomaniac. Ooh, a dangerous lie. Kabando wa kabanda. Yo. Let him produce withdrawal receipts and RTGS, okay? Miguna says, in all countries governed by the rule of law, everyone walking around or pretending to donate 20 million shillings in cash is deemed a money launderer and promptly arrested and charged. It doesn't matter whether one is a president or a billionaire. Here's the thing, Eric. We have billionaires all around the world, millionaires, billionaires, businessmen of good repute who have made their fortune in, I don't know, creating some of the biggest businesses we know. When they want to donate money, what do? Do they go to hand it out at a church, a school, etc.? Or do they form, for example, a foundation and channel that money through? You can say it's for tax breaks in history nyingi, but yes. Do they find a structured way of giving back to society?
Yeah.
Or is it just a show of shika?
You know, it's a mix of very many things, right? There's a mix of what we have grown to do with our harambees. I mean, harambe is that Ubuntu thing in us. That when my brother is in trouble, so am I. And I'm going to do anything, no matter how small, to help. And it's in those positions of distress, or even in those positions where somebody comes and says, you know what, I have found somebody is advertising a job opportunity that I can go to Canada, and they need 240,000 shillings for me just to make the application, and also air ticket, and I'll be able to go. And you people have seen, and they say, can you people just help me? And people in a village put in money, no matter how small.
Right.
Shika pesa, let's support you. Just go to Canada. We have seen that.
We have.
That's what we do. I mean,
that's
normally our harambe culture is not the one for silent. It's the one of saying, basket is there.
Yeah.
We go in and we put our money. Or there's an MC and we say, sisi watu hapa hivi Kalawa tumesema tutapatia huyu mtu 1,300.
Yes.
Inatangazwa 1,300 kwa watu wa Kalawa, inawekwa kwa
coffee.
Yes. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Now, the problem that I see here is that when it comes to those in our politics, they have made it something. They have made it something to show off that, you know what, I have money, I will come to your harambe, I'll come to your mazishi, I will leave some money, I will go. And when the Gen Z and the people of Kenya were complaining last year, they were not complaining and saying that harambes are bad. They were complaining and saying the manner in which some of those in leadership are using harambes, they're using harambes as wash means.
Boom.
So you're coming to us and you say, niko na pesa. Wapi huyo kijana? Lete. Comes with a kihol bahasha. Hapa niko na 10 million shillings, ninaweka hapa. And you wonder, this guy, we know him from the village. We know this guy. How is he able to afford 10 million shillings for our harambe today?
Right.
He's going to the next village and giving 5 million shillings. Last Sunday, he gave 15 million shillings. Where is the money coming from? Look at his lifestyle. This lifestyle does not match the guy that we knew a couple of months ago. The most likely trajectory here is that he has gone, we have given him the keys to the coffers, and he's taking from the coffers money that should be building our schools and our hospitals and all, and our roads, and he's bringing it to us here, showing off with haram. And that's why people said, no, you've got to stop.
Right.
When the president was saying, let's not do it, that is why he was saying, let's not do it. The issue here is the principle. The principle with which the president said, let us stop harambes, was because of how the harambes have been misused by state and public officers.
Okay. When we get back from the break, I'm going to tell you why it's not just state. public officers who are the problem with Harambee culture in Kenya. Hashtag Fixing the Nation NTV. Of course, 0719038858 is our number. Call in. Of course, send us your WhatsApp Nation. We'll be back in a bit. Just before we went on the break, Eric, I was making the point that our Harambee culture is problematic from the core. It is not just from a political perspective. And I say this because whatever new name you give it,
it's the same.
It's the same thing. Whether you take it to a technological, whether you put it on an app, whether you decide you're doing it with cryptocurrency, if it's Bitcoin that you're donating, harambe ni harambe, right? And it's problematic because we have that culture of crowdfunding, and it's a wonderful thing because we come through for one another, but it's taken advantage of way too many times. And it's not just politicians. It's not just when you're seeing 20 million or you're seeing 10 million and you're wondering how are these people making this much. I'll give you an example before we get into some clips of President Ruto. I'll give you an example of a few years ago, a friend of a friend was fundraising for their mom who was sick, right? And immediately you see that your empathy takes over and you send, you send the money, right? So there was a first round and a first round of money sent. We all put in, watu wakachanga, we were given updates. This is how much has been collected. This is how much is going towards this treatment, this surgery, etc. Fantastic. A second round comes, and then now you start hearing from maybe close friends who are trying to go and visit and check on you because you're going through a lot.
Yeah.
You're not only fundraising, your mom is sick in hospital. Let's come through, even make you a meal, just, just spend a bit of time with you. And it's like, no, okay, let's go see your mom in hospital. No, it's what's happening. Fast forward a few years later, it unravels. The whole scheme unravels. After people had sent in their small 200 here, 500 here, your 1,000, your 10,000, etc. It was all a scam. There was no sick mother in question. It was just somebody wanting extra money. And I'm like, are you not even scared of putting that energy out, into the universe? And that's a tiny example of just our Harambee spirit being taken care of. But even go bigger, crowdfunding as a whole. GoFundMe, which is a really, really big crowdfunding platform based out of the US, has seen ridiculous numbers of scammers. And they'll come with the most heartwarming, nice stories ever, and they'll crowdfund, especially for medical issues, and they'll get millions, billions. People have become millionaires off of crowdfunding issues, and then they just disappear. They go start a new life in some place that's a tax shelter that doesn't have extradition treaties with the US. So is our politicians the problem, or are Harambees, quote unquote, the problem?
Yes, there's a problem in the levels of trust in our community, okay? And the problem here on trust matters is how is the kind-hearted spirit of our fellow Kenyans taken for a ride by individuals, by people in your community, by your neighbor, by your family member, and all. There's an abuse of that. There's the abuse of now, because I'm doing something I expect. I have a wedding coming up, and I call you all for goat eating. Basically, just extorting you to fund my wedding.
Extorting.
It's extortion. Just extorting you to come for my wedding in the name of goat eating.
Okay.
There's a way in which people have abused the Harambee spirit. That's on one side.
Okay.
But I'd like us not to mix those two with the break of trust by those in our leadership who then also want to abuse the Harambee. Because there's that. There's people who are just thugs who come in the form of a Harambee and they make you guys contribute and then wanakula yo pesa na sherehe. There are those who, force you into a Harambee because they've added you into a WhatsApp, and then you're like, tuna contribute by the way.
As a matter of fact.
By the kilometer anatoa 5,000.
Budget yetu ni 1.2. Tumetoa 50. So you mtafigure out the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And then somebody like a loudmouth there starts coming and allocating. To call to 15 kwa group, so kilometer anatoa this much. That is just extortion in the name of Harambee. Yeah. That's one side.
Okay.
And then there's what we see with our politicians, which is the abuse of the same Harambee spirit. That yes, we are in distress as a community. or we are rolling out this project as a community, and we're all coming together as members of community.
Great.
And because you are one of us, as a member of our community, we've also invited you. Come in and help us contribute so that we can do this. We can roll out this project. There's that. And then now you, as a member of the community, you come in with a certain show-off mentality.
Okay. And
the showing off is the amount of money that you're coming with. Yes, there is the side of the expectation of the public that because wewe ni mheshimiwa, hauwezi kuja na 5,000 surely. Na surely, wewe unakuja kwa harambee na 5,000 na tulimchagua. There is that, which is... But it doesn't mean that the solution to that is now you go and come with 20 million.
From where?
That's the thing.
From where?
It doesn't mean that because we, chastised you the other time because you only came and contributed 2,000 shillings, yeah, and when you muhesh, that now the next time then you come with 20 million shillings. No. And when the president was speaking last year, he was speaking in full cognizance of that this is what Kenyans were saying. That when we see you starting to drive big cars, starting to fly around, starting to come to harambees, and in fact you're hopping from one harambee to the other because you have this chopper, and you're dropping millions in every harambee. So in a day, we can just calculate you've spent 100 million shillings in donations. We've got to ask, hey, lakini wait a minute, ni sawa, pesa umetuachia, lakini, is this clean money? Ni pesa yetu, ama ni Illuminati? Umetoa pesa wapi? And that's what the president was saying.
I agree.
And so we come back into saying, because the president listened, and he said he has listened, and he has heard, then can he act as somebody who has listened and heard?
Fair.
And said, churches, you all know what Kenyans want and what Kenyans are saying.
Right.
I will come in as a member. There's a harambe. I'll contribute the much that I can. Quietly, silently, as a member of this church.
Right.
As an invited guest to this church. But now, because I'm a state officer, there has to be a procedure that's followed in me making my donation.
Okay.
I expect that the Attorney General will come with that procedure so that then there are no questions about Ruto umetoa pesa mingi sana. He can decide to donate his entire salary. You said it's 1 point what?
It's 1.4 before.
He can decide every month 1.4 million shillings will be going to worthy causes. It's fine. But can we have a structure? Because he said it himself. Yeye mwenyewe, it's not us who told it. Yeye mwenyewe alisema, we shall stop until we have a framework. Where is the framework? That's what we are asking for. Just in case you forgot, this is what President William Ruto said in July last year versus what he said on Sunday this weekend.
And because God gave as an example, we are going to give in keeping so that the word of God can reach others who have not known God. And we are going to serve God through our giving. So we have absolutely no apologies.
Ioni moja.
Then there is what he said.
Right. When he was banning state officials, and I put banning in quotes, state officials from giving to harambees.
No state officer or public servant shall participate in public contributions or harambees going forward. The Attorney General is hereby directed to prepare and submit legislation to this effect and develop a mechanism for structured and transparent contributions for public, charitable, and philanthropic purposes.
Bishop, katika ujenzi wa kanisa letu hapa, mbali na mbali na ile yote tumesema, mbali na kupatiana title deed, mbali na kusema wanajeshi wasimame kando, mbali na kutengeneza barabara, si ndio? mimi mwenyewe nitatoa milioni 20 kwanza. Nitaanza kupanga hiyo maneno wakati
the ululation in that church when he said mimi mwenyewe nitatoa milioni 20 kwanza, that the ululation,
the members of the church,
the joy. Where is the room for asking questions? And I know I can see a loophole already, Eric.
Yeah.
President William Ruto said, I'm banning state officials from giving to harambees. We're seeing him give to harambees. The easy loophole that a lot of people will run to is that there was a bill introduced called the Public Fundraising Appeals Bill in 2024, aiming to regulate harambees and restrict state officers and political aspirants from participating in such fundraisers close to elections. However, the Senate rejected the bill, arguing it would undermine the communal support system integral to Kenyan society. So who failed us? Is it President William Ruto or the Senate?
Who introduced the bill?
President William Ruto.
Was it introduced by government or was it a private member's bill?
Oh, that's a great question.
And two, so it's been rejected there. What framework had been put in place by the Attorney General? And was this thing introduced before the Senate so that it can just go and kill it and die?
Great question.
So that it then just dies? Because then we just revert to the status quo. The status quo is the president says we shall not do it until we have a framework. We have a framework that introduces transparency and clarity on a state officer contributing. What is that framework?
Right. Pending the framework.
If this particular bill was rejected, where is the framework? That then, what is the next conversation around it?
Right.
Because it's a matter that's not just one side of the country has raised, yes. Another side of the country, like we're seeing, the members of the church in Roysambu were very happy because, well, tuko na harambee, tumetolewa pesa, tutajenga kanisa yetu. Very many questions to be asked on the process going forward. But the president himself said, let's not do it anymore until we have a framework.
Yeah.
When the Catholic bishops were speaking, and especially Bishop Philip Anyolo, he said, you know, we also want to have transparency. The reason why we are not accepting this money is because we want money to come in transparently. Even before Bishop Anyolo had spoken, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya had issued a directive and said, if it's a donation, then let it come in form of a check, not cash. Don't just come with cash because you may be playing wash-wash with us. Come with a check. That check, go deposit in the bank.
Right.
If it's a certain amount of money, you will declare how you came across that money and how you're donating it to us. There'll be other checks and balances. Let's see and hear what Bishop Philip Anyolo had said when he was rejecting donations.
What we said we have done. It remains on the part of the government to commend what we have not done. And then we know what we have not done so that we do. But we are ready and willing and we return everything that we are supposed to do. And second, I don't want to discuss things that the president has said in the public like this because he has said already. And I don't want to be like, I'm not a politician.
The question is it okay?
Is what okay?
I mean, now that I mean it's happening like this, or I've been in Parliament, or it's about giving. This is about I grew up in church.
Right.
I was brought up in church, and I know the power of giving. I'm a Christian. I've read the Bible. I know the power of giving. Even if I'm not a politician, if I was just a non-state officer, I would contribute. If you don't have a problem with non-politician contributing, why do you have a problem with the politician contributing? Is it okay?
It's not okay. Again, in the absence of regulatory frameworks, in the absence of questioning why systems are failing to the extent that we need to fundraise for, whether it's for critical infrastructure, for basic infrastructure, whether it's fundraising for health reasons, fundraising for burials. Why do we have to do that? That's question one. Question two, why are the people we've put in charge of creating the systems that allow us to live decent lives, why are those people then the ones that are donating to us and having us basically be beggars, waiting for handouts, waiting for philanthropic handouts, because it's still a handout at the end of the day, instead of holding those people accountable and saying, why is the system not working? Why is this not going right? We're there waiting for the 10 million, the 20 million, the 500,000, the 1,000, the 50 bob they give you when they come for a campaign rally. Why are we not questioning those? The who, the why is the problem, right? Who is giving this money? Why are they giving it? Where are they getting it from is the other big why. Because these large sums of money. I would love to go back to, for example, the churches that have received 10 million, 20 million, and it's usually towards building, for example, a new wing, some sort of infrastructure on the church ground, whether it's some classrooms. I want to go back there and I want to see those classrooms. I want to see what's been built with the 10, with the 20. I want to see what that money is doing so that we can also refute these claims that this is some washing, some laundromat. It's a big ask, but I would love to.
Does that money actually end up doing those things? So somebody has come to church and they've said, I'm donating.
Yeah.
Many times you'll hear that politicians, akuja kwa kanisa aseme, na mimi nitatoa 5 million yangu, na 3 million yangu ya marafiki zangu. They go, do they actually leave that money? You will hear very many people saying that politicians actually made that commitment and made that pledge, but no,
nothing.
You don't get the money. No, unless the one that they've come with, even the ones they've come with their cash.
Right.
Afterwards, you'll hear some politicians go back and say, well, lete hiyo pesa, nitakurudishia, ninaenda kutoa nini? Hii unajua siwezi beba ati 100 million on a day. So nilikuwa nimetoa to 10 million, niende nikipledge, niko na harambee 10 leo, but all of you, by the end of the week, mtapata hiyo pesa yenu. No, you don't see that money. It's the principle behind it.
Right.
It's a principle behind it where it's just...
Why cash as well? There's so many questions. Why cash? Why are you walking around with 10 million in cash, 20, whatever big sums of money? I don't let me not say that. But in general, people just don't walk around with millions of shillings for donations. A dummy check would do just as well, right? It gives the illusion of grandeur. If you want people to see that you have given a big amount of money, that's why those dummy checks are usually that huge, so that you can see this is 100 million, this is 10, this is 1 million shillings. Could do the same thing, but why cash? So there's questions around it. Are we getting any answers anytime soon? I don't think so, because the regulatory framework has been shot down by the Senate. They've said we are a community, we are Ubuntu, we love to come together, so why would you stop us from doing that? But why do politicians want us to be beholden to them? Why do they want us to be ready, waiting for that 1 million, that 5,000, that whichever amount of money it is? Why are they so unwilling to do the work that will have us not need harambees or harambe culture? And when do we also call ourselves to account and stop accepting money when it's not clear where it's coming from, what it's being used for, and why we are getting it?
We've got to become a society that agrees that if this is how we live, we just live like that, right? That if we have chosen to live by the rule of law, then we live by the rule of law. When we have chosen to live by our word, if your word is your deed, then let the word be the deed. If you've made a promise to do something, then do it. And I think that's how we fix the nation going forward. Right? Your World is coming up next after we leave the studio. And today, the ladies have something interesting. Winnie Lubembe and Mwekali Mary are talking to how do financial disparities affect relationship dynamics.
What do you mean? So Jennifer Lopez was lying and she said, love don't cost a thing.
Well, love doesn't cost a thing. Staying in love.
That's where I saw someone put it very nicely.
Yeah.
If you get with someone and at the beginning they're spoiling you, you're living nice, and then you see a reduction. Kuna difference here. Recruitment budget, alafu sasa day to day.
Yes. But then also, once you get into that relationship and both of you are coming in with your different levels of income, do those matter? Does it matter if the woman is earning more than the man? Does it matter? Coach Chris is the founder and CEO of Craft Your Future. And Nangami Masaka is a self-mastery coach. Those are the two guests who will be on Your World shortly. Thank you very much for watching us today and for listening to us on Nation FM and for following our conversations online on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, everywhere. Asante sana. We are fixing the nation one conversation at a time. We'll be back tomorrow morning. It's Eric, Latiff, and Mariam Bishar. Tomorrow, Janet will hopefully be joining us again. Have a good one.